Okay, Michael, I want to start with this sound. Because, when I first heard your recording of this sound, I was like, what is this? This is not what I expected.
I think it was maybe what I expected. It sounds small and angry. And I think I would be feeling a similar way if I was in the predicament that this little creature was.
What is this little creature?
This is an evening bat.
It's no bigger than a clementine.
That's tiny.
So, if you can just imagine yourself zooming through the woods, catching insects, eating them, then all of a sudden you're caught in this thing.
Caught in what?
Caught in a net that some of these bat researchers had set up over a river.
Look at what we have.
That was the whole reason that they were out there.
Here's another one.
To catch and study bats that were at this pecan orchard.
Definitely want poop samples from this guy. Oh, look at this.
Wait, is this the pecan orchard? Is this Troy's pecan orchard?
This is the pecan orchard.
Oh, great. We're going to be talking all about it, but I should probably get you to introduce yourself first.
Yeah, I'm Michael Marks. I am a reporter based in Austin, Texas. I work for the Texas Standard, which is the national daily news show of Texas. And I am also a reporter for Harvest Public Media, which covers agriculture and food in the central United States.
You're listening to Up From Dust, a show about the environment in the middle of the country. I'm Celia Llopis-Jepsen. Learning to grow our food with fewer chemicals is easier said than done. And the financial stakes for farmers are real. It's scary to risk a smaller crop while trying to pull back on the tools you've used for years or maybe generations. But there are farmers making the transition and succeeding. And in the case of one, it has transformed his orchard, bringing back wild plants and animals. Now that land has also become a place where he and bat scientists learn together. And they've got a goal of figuring out how to help these animals that are in trouble and how these animals can help farmers grow our food. Okay, so tell me the story of Troy Swift. He's almost like this accidental farmer.
Yes, I think that's reasonable. He started his adult career making canoes and kayaks. The first time he laid eyes on the property he now owns
was in 1978.
I was 20 years old.
He was on a canoe trip, and he stopped and got out
of the San Marcos River at a bridge near Staples, Texas.
And looked around, said, if I ever had any money...
If I ever had enough money, I would buy a place like this. And 20 years later, in 1998, I bought it.
And he found that there were pecan trees on the property.
It had an old pecan orchard on it. That year or the next year, it put on a very heavy crop. And my wife and I were down there, and I said, well, honey, I guess we're going to have to learn how to be pecan farmers.
And he did.
You're at Swift River Pecan's farm on the San Marcos River near Fentress, Texas.
It's kind of like halfway between San Antonio and Austin, or?
Yeah, exactly. And he's all pecans all the time. He sells them to restaurants. He sells them to, individuals who stop by the shop. When he started the same way everybody did.
Well, I was trained in traditional pecan farming.
To maintain the health of your trees, you spray them with chemicals. Insecticides, herbicides, fungicides.
And lots of nitrogen fertilizer.
The whole 9 yards. That's just the way people did it. That's the way people do it, present tense, by and large.
But I had trees that started not doing very well.
Should I spray more, And really, perhaps the answer was the opposite.
I started realizing that there's got to be a better way than spending all this money on these hard chemicals and having poor performance out of the trees.
He's sort of come to understand the value of trying to let Mother Nature manage itself to the fullest extent possible.
And so I started studying soil science.
Let the soil and nature do its thing.
I got rid of the herbicide right away.
And he just stopped mowing the grass around the trees.
Except at harvest. We have to mow one time a year. We used to keep it looking like a golf course.
He decided to leave it. Leave those weeds, leave the leaves that fell on the ground.
So we make major savings on fuel and diesel and machine maintenance. We're also keeping the soil cool and keeping it covered and increasing organic matter in the soil.
That, in turn, led to greater health within the soil underneath.
The healthy soil makes a healthy plant, makes healthy food, makes healthy people.
There's a few things going on here. I mean, yes, Troy wants to be a good steward of the land, but he also wants to make money, and so do other farmers. And that's another piece of this puzzle, reducing your reliance on fertilizer that you have to buy and bring in, reducing your reliance on pesticides. That can help your bottom line.
So it sounds like kind of like a journey, trying to figure out, okay, how do I cut back on this chemical? How do I cut back on that one?
Yeah, definitely.
I have always been a nature lover. Even when I was spraying herbicides and pesticides, I always hated it. I always felt like it was wrong. And so when I learned about this new farming technique, this regenerative agriculture, or now they're calling it soil management. But I don't care what you call it. I want to work with Mother Nature, not against her, to grow the best pecans money can buy.
Sometimes when you're talking to folks, you can see their affect change a little bit when a particular subject comes up. And as we were talking and he kind of got to going on about his land and the changes that he's seen.
We have a lot more deer and turkey and birds.
And the sort of abundance and signs of life that are there now that weren't in the past. It kind of felt like he got a little emotional. And it was obviously something that struck a real chord with him.
I walk down here every morning. Every morning my routine is to walk through here. I walk about 3 miles, and it is way more fun to be down here than it used to be.
More going on.
More going on, more to look at. And Mother Nature has some very wondrous things to observe. In fact, my mom used to say, my mom passed a while back, she was 98 years old. Her saying to me all my life was, Mother Nature, the greatest show on earth.
I really like that quote. So I want to get into this other thing now. This other thing happens. Troy gets really into bats, right? But that's actually connected to a neighbor. Can you walk me back a little bit to this neighbor of his?
Sure. A man named Merlin Tuttle.
I'm Merlin Tuttle, and I've been studying bats for 65 years.
Merlin Tuttle is one of the world's preeminent bat experts.
I invented the trap that's used for catching bats worldwide now.
He's been working to help, improve bat habitat, to help, deepen our knowledge of why bats are important to the human race. Troy first knew him, though, as the guy who just wanted to fish on his property.
Funny story.
Merlin had a standing agreement with the previous property owner.
They asked if Merlin could continue to fish here, and I said yes.
Typical neighbor stuff. Till years later, 2021, Troy's having a big impromptu gathering for pecan farmers on his land. People were going to chat about eco-friendly farming and stuff like that.
And his wife, Paula, knew that we were going to have this impromptu meeting.
And she wanted Merlin to go, give a talk.
I had no interest whatsoever, and she practically threatened my life if I didn't come with her.
He talked about bats to these pecan growers.
People were really, really interested, and he became really interested.
And then that's where it really all started.
A bunch of factors fall into place that end up making Troy and Merlin great partners on a quest to help bats and to help bats help farmers. And a big factor is this. Merlin had been wrestling with a bat conundrum.
Bats are, in many cases, almost desperately in need of housing.
Bat populations are declining. If you're in a spot that's conducive to bats and you put up a bat house, you're helping solve the problem. But
we'd been having a hard time getting bat houses to be occupied here in this area because we have such huge temperature fluctuations. And it's hard to get a house that'll accommodate, not overheat on a hot day or not get too cold on a cool day.
I don't see why bats need houses at all. They've been around a lot longer than we've been building houses for them. So what's that about?
Yeah, bats like to live, historically, in old growth trees.
Troy still has a few of those that are like 300 years old.
Trees that are still upright but are sort of hollowed out.
Only these old trees have nice hollows in them where the bats can roost.
Those are fewer and further between than they've ever been before. Bat habitat is being destroyed and has been being destroyed at a pretty alarming rate for a long time.
Okay, so I get it. Bat houses help, but Merlin was having some issues getting bats to stay in them.
But then he went to my sawmill and saw that we had pecky cypress.
Not only is Troy a pecan farmer, he takes these huge cypress trees that have been downed from floods over the past 20 years and makes them into beautiful pieces of planed wood for furniture. And so Merlin took a look at this, took a look at the sawmill, took a look at the wood, took a look at the cypress.
And he said, Troy, this is the best bat house material I've ever seen.
They call it punky cypress. On the inside of the cypress tree, this fungus has eaten away a little bit of the cypress inside.
It's extra lightweight, extra insulative.
It's a little porous.
Gives them rough surface to cling to, but the porosity makes the wood more insulative so that it doesn't fluctuate as much with outside temperature changes.
And it also has some ventilation.
And I thought, God, what an ideal place to test bat houses.
He said, hey, your land is actually really great testing ground for bat houses because of the river.
You ought to put up a bat house to help you with your pests.
To help with crop pests?
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay, you give me a design and I'll put one up.
And it's taken off, so to speak.
He actually attracted bats very quickly.
Brazilian freetails and evening bats.
And he counted how many bats are coming in, how many bats are going out.
It increases every year since we've been doing it. Started at about 20 or 30 and now it's at 400. It goes up about 100 every year or more.
That's a good sign that what we're doing is actually helping. We're not just giving the bats that are already there a place to live. We're building populations with more bats than there were previously.
It's also good for people. Yeah. I mean, have you been bit by a mosquito since you've been here? I haven't.
I have not.
And not only are they growing the bat population, they're learning cool things about how the bats like to use the boxes.
And I can't wait to hear more. And we will get into that right after the break. Stick with us. So, Michael, how many bat houses does Troy have on his property now?
When this grand experiment began, Troy only had the one house. Now he's got up to 20, maybe even more.
We have found that if you give bats multiple house options, you double your odds of success in attracting them.
Yeah, the bats move from house to house.
First of all, you don't want to always be in the same house if you can avoid it because predators catch on where you're coming in and out.
Troy said that one night around dusk, when the bats were starting to come out, he was watching, and all of a sudden, he saw some sort of hawk just shoot through the bats that were coming out of this one house. And the bats didn't return to that house for months, maybe.
The other thing is that if you give them multiple houses, they can move among them to avoid parasites. And yet another feature has to do with temperature.
That's a big variable for these bats is whether the houses heat up too much.
We painted half of them and didn't paint the others.
And why does that matter?
Well, the unpainted houses got darker in color as the wood aged, so those absorb more warmth from the sun.
And in the cooler spring and fall periods, they'll go to the warmer houses, and then in the midsummer they'll switch to the less heated houses.
The bats and, their own little decision matrix, whatever it is, figuring out which house is the most comfortable and feels the safest, and they collectively make the decision to go to one or the other.
The houses have been 100% occupied, but never all of them at the same time.
To be clear, not like every bat species wants a bat house, right?
Correct. There are some species that might only want to live in a cave or might only want to live in a tree, but there are plenty of species for whom the house is perfectly hospitable.
Okay, so Troy is together with Merlin, they're 100% helping these bats. But then my next question is are the bats helping Troy's farm? Because that's part of the goal, right?
Absolutely.
We've already identified 200 kinds of insects that the bats are eating.
They eat termites, they eat flying ants.
We do these genetic analyses of what's in the feces.
Beetles of all sorts.
Several species of mosquitoes.
All kind of moth. And those are some of our main pests.
So there's a pest called a pecan case bearer moth, which munches on the pecan and damages it. There are also green stink bugs, which are deleterious to pecan tree health. And with being able to catch bats, analyze their guano, Troy knows for a fact that the bats in his area are eating the pests that affect his trees the most.
So are bat houses a silver bullet? Let's just use bat houses. We don't need pesticides anymore.
No. Let me say no.
We can't just say bats are going to prevent use of pesticides. It's not true.
Particularly when we're talking about large-scale agriculture, acres and acres and acres of cotton, soybeans, corn.
Bats can't deal with large areas of monoculture.
Troy's right by a river. That's perfect.
Bats like rivers because not only do they provide water and cooling, but they also are excellent sources of biodiversity.
A ton of biodiversity, different plants, different trees that attract different kinds of insects.
And you get mayfly hatches out of the water too.
So I imagine Merlin got to this pecan farm, saw that it's next to the water, that it's not like this, golf course looking mowed thing.
Right.
And must have been kind of delighted.
I think that's exactly the way he felt. Troy's taking, a little more maybe naturalistic, you might call it, a little more in harmony with nature rather than working against her. That has attracted more insects and more types of insects to his property, particularly as he has decided not to mow the area around the pecan trees. So while that may feel counterintuitive, all right, guy, pecan grower, why are you luring in these potential threats to your product? The fact of the matter is that by letting the weeds grow, he's going to help that bat population by giving them, frankly, a bigger menu of things to dine off of. He wants them to eat the pecan case bearer moths. He wants them to eat the green stink bugs. But if those are the only insects around, then the bats are probably not going to hang out.
Bats can't just depend on eating certain pests in your orchard. They got to have something to eat in between when the pests hatch.
They want the buffet. They don't just want the one item.
Bats have been perceived as a scourge to people for centuries.
People were told that their bats in caves were rabid.
Bats were a bad omen.
And they were pouring kerosene into the caves and lighting it on fire and killing thousands at a time.
And it sounds like you probably wouldn't even have to go back a century to get to the point where people were doing that.
No.
When I first moved to Austin, one of the first calls I had from the public about bats was, "Oh my God, they're out here just down the street burning with blowtorches in crevices in a bridge."
That's insane. I didn't know that.
If you've ever been to Austin, Texas, you know that we're pretty proud of our bats here. There are Mexican free-tail bats that fly from underneath the Congress Avenue Bridge. The reason that happens is because of Merlin Tuttle, frankly. Years and years and years ago,
when the bats moved into the Congress Avenue Bridge,
they were viewed as a nuisance.
People were literally signing petitions to have them eradicated.
How do we get rid of these bats? They can't bring anything good. And Merlin Tuttle was the voice in the wilderness that said, not only do we want these bats, we need these bats.
We've had 1.5 million under our Congress Avenue Bridge for 35 years or so now.
The bats became the symbol of the city. People line up to watch them.
And not a single person has been harmed by one of those bats.
Has anyone estimated how many insects those bats eat every night?
Like 10 tons every night.
That's amazing.
Seems like a lot.
The revolution in attitude toward bats is quite encouraging.
Tell me about Troy's ultimate goal.
Yeah.
We're hoping that the bats will consume enough of the pecan nut case bearer and the hickory shuckworm to keep us what's called below economic threshold.
It's not that you don't have any remaining damage, it's that you lower the damage level below the threshold which would cause you to spray pesticides.
Bats are going to be key to that.
As well as the birds, who are also big insect eaters.
We call the bats the night shift and the birds the day shift.
There's a study in the Mediterranean a number of years ago that showed that when they put up strategically located bat houses around rice crops, that they actually eliminated the need for pesticides.
So Troy's goal is to reduce that insect damage to the point where it just doesn't make economic sense to spray insecticide. So is he there yet?
He's not totally there yet. He's there on one part of his farm.
This year is the first year at one of my farms, at my Staples farm, I did not spray any insecticide at all. And we had a good bat population over there. I had a big crop, and I said, you know what, I'm just not going to spray any insecticide at all over there. And guess what? We got a really good crop over there.
I think he would certainly like to see if that strategy can work across his property.
And if you can avoid spraying pesticides, of course, you're saving a lot of money and you're saving the environment. Sadly, today in America, we use close to 1 billion pounds of pesticides annually, and something like 33 million pounds of that is neurotoxins. One of the best ways to control insects is to screw with their brains. But we forget that we're going to screw with our brains too. I mean, I have Parkinson's, and Parkinson's has been very closely linked to exposure to pesticides.
For some farmers, going pesticide-free could seem like too big of a risk. There's just too much money riding on it. Troy's in a position, I believe, where he is able to take some risks.
And I'm able to do that because of my age and my financial situation.
You know, based off of his previous careers, building canoes and kayaks and then building equipment for jet engines.
And it seems like in the meantime, he's out there just telling other farmers, hey, I'm giving this a shot.
Yes. That's a big part of this for him, is sharing what he knows.
And I'm currently the president of the Texas Pecan Growers Association, so I have visibility in the industry, and everybody knows what I'm doing.
I think perhaps he gets some leery looks at the Pecan Growers Association meetings.
They don't all think I'm doing the right thing, but I do.
That doesn't seem to bother him.
I'm 66 years old. I'm not a big farmer. This 266 acres I own is really small in the pecan world. There's much bigger places. So I'm not going to impact the world by saying I grew 1 million pounds, but what I can do is say I can impact the pecan industry by discovering and testing and validating these soil management and biodiversity techniques and principles, and hopefully I can have a positive impact on the pecan industry.
Troy is a goldmine opportunity for people that want to learn more about the value of bats and helping people. It's one thing to have a bat biologist claiming that bats are valuable, but it's a whole nother step forward when you have the president of the Pecan Growers Association of Texas telling people how he's benefiting.
To have Troy is someone who is just preaching the gospel of bats. That's all just been tremendous, I think, for Merlin's work.
Here in America, we have, just in my lifetime, we've dramatically lost numbers of small family farms, and we've gone into industrial agriculture. Well, industrial agriculture almost ensures that you're not going to have help from nature because you've got huge monocultures and animals just can't survive that.
But the small family farms that are left, plus the pecan growers who tend to own land along the rivers that the bats love so much, Merlin says if these landowners get on board, they can get a foothold to build a brighter future with more bats, fewer pesticides.
My view is that if we get enough small farmers where it really can be effective, like the pecan growers that are just naturally in the right habitat where bats can effectively make a difference, if we can start in those places, we can gradually spread into places of monoculture. We can't just jump out there and expect things to be different.
Up From Dust is a production of KCUR Studios and Harvest Public Media, created by the Kansas News Service. This episode was reported by Michael Marks from the Texas Standard and Harvest Public Media. He now has me dying to visit Texas bat roosts, including one called Bracken Cave,
where millions and millions of free-tailed bats live. And there's just nothing to describe what it feels like to stand there and watch them. As they fly up and out and over your head, and they make this tornado. Bats are pretty special.
Batnado, much cooler than Sharknado.
Yeah, 1,000 times.
This episode was produced and mixed by me, Celia Llopis-Jepsen. The show's editor is Mackenzie Martin. Thanks Maria Altman, Gabe Rosenberg, and Jacob Smolin. The scientists you heard at the start of this episode catching bats on Troy's property are with the nonprofit Merlin Tuttle's Bat Conservation. We'll link to that and to Michael's reporting in the show notes. Music is provided by David Condos, Tom Lonnie, Milktooth, and Blue Dot Sessions. Thanks KPR for studio access. Okay, next time on Up From Dust, we'll learn from two communities nearly 4,000 miles apart that are both facing a struggle for survival. Until next time, thanks for listening.